Happy Saturday. Come on in. Come on in. We are back with our book of the month chat with ReShonda Tate. We're talking about With Love from Harlem. So excited to chat with ReShonda today. I hope you guys read this book. There's so much juice in here and it is so good. Hold on. ReShonda's already here. We're going to get started on time. Can you guys hear me okay? Please. Let me know if you can hear me with the thumbs up.
Hello.
Hi there.
How are you?
I am doing great. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine. I hear an echo
Great.
though, but
There's an echo?
okay, maybe it's just me. Nope. I hear you fine.
Okay. Because I'm trying this mic so it can be nice and clear, but if there's an echo, I'll turn it off.
All right. Nope, you're good.
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am good. Busy, busy, but I love it.
I know. I'm so, you know, I have enjoyed watching the journey of you being on tour. It's been so much love and just, it's been amazing to see. Oh, you're spinning. Okay. I think
I
your
hope
connection.
so.
Yeah, your connection. You're good?
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good.
You were spinning there for a second. We lost you for a
Oh,
minute.
okay. All right.
Okay. So I am excited to have this book. This was a perfect book to read for Women's History Month. And there's an echo for your guest. Okay, Billy, who's echoing? Me or you guys are hearing an echo? Let me know because I will shut this mic off if there's an echo. Okay, we'll move right along. Okay, so today I am happy to talk with ReShonda Tate. ReShonda, you have published more than 50 books.
This is 54. This is
This
book
is
54.
54.
Yeah.
Okay, so best-selling author, journalist, TV producer. I mean, what else do you want to tell the folks about yourself before we dive into this amazing book?
I'm just an ordinary girl who does some extraordinary things.
Listen, I love that. I love that. That's a title that you come in with. I love it. So let's talk about. First of all, I want to say you are our March Reed, and I have to tell you, I discovered you with the Queen of Sugar Hill.
Hmm.
And so this is now my second book by you, and it's making me. I got to go back. I need to go back. So before we leave today, you're going to tell me what to start with since I'm going to the back catalog.
I love it. I love it.
So tell me a little bit about your journey because you've written, like you said, this is 54. And so what
hmm
has been your journey into publishing?
So I started out self-published because I
Okay.
couldn't get a book deal,
Hmm.
and I am a hustler. And so I got out there, I hustled, and I caught the attention of Simon and Schuster, and they picked me up and re-released me, and here I am, 54 books later.
Okay, people are saying the author is echoing, so I'm going to unplug this mic. That'll take everything away because we don't want you echoing.
Yeah, I don't. Is the echo still there?
Okay, we'll do that. So what book did they pick you up on?
My first one, my self-published book, My Brother's Keeper.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did, and they re-released it.
Okay, I got you. I got you. They re-released that one, so maybe that's where I need to start. Is My Brother's Keeper.
Well, that's a long way ago. So, I wrote contemporary fiction. Some
Mhm.
people classified me as Christian fiction. I have never written Christian fiction. I'm a Christian who writes fiction, but I don't want people picking up my book thinking it's Christian fiction, and then they like, oh, she got some cuss words in here, because Christians don't curse,
And I
right?
think that was one of my questions because I saw it characterized as Christian fiction.
No, it's because my titles. So people started classifying me because of my titles. But no, I write reality. And the crackheads I know don't say pass the pipe, gosh darn it. So you gonna get reality with my stuff.
Listen. I love it. I love that. So 54 books. And so I want to ask the question that I would normally ask at the end. I'm going to ask this now. 54 books. How do you feel like you've grown as an author through these 54 books?
So I am a journalist by trade. Right now, what I'm doing is historical fiction, which is the
Love it.
best of both worlds for me. I am able to lay the facts down as the foundation and then fill in the blanks with the fiction. And for me, that's the best of both worlds. So I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be, in the historical fiction lane.
I love it because historical fiction is my favorite. It's always
Yeah,
been my favorite.
yeah,
It's just you
yeah.
always discover, something new, uh, and the authors that do the work. And so let's talk about what was your inspiration for this story? What drew you to Hazel Scott? I mean, you took us to Harlem. Maybe you took us to Harlem.
And people will ask me, am I from Harlem? Because of it. No, I just did a lot of research. I stayed in Harlem, but I found out about Hazel Scott while researching in the Queen of Sugar Hill because she was Hattie McDaniel knew her, but I only knew her from Alicia Keys being an inspiration to Alicia. Once I started digging on Hazel, I was shocked. I was like, how do I not know this
Hmm.
woman? I wanted to have a talk show growing up. How did I not know the first black woman to ever have her own nationally syndicated show? So the
Yeah.
more I dug, the more I was like, the world needs to know about this woman.
Yeah. And talk a little about your research. What did you do? You said you stayed in Harlem. I mean, you could tell that it's very well researched because I mean, the settings and everything, we felt like we were in Harlem. You felt the era of the jazz era. You felt all the emotion that was
Yeah.
going on during that time.
So I spent about 3.5 years. I have probably over researched because I kept going down these rabbit
Hmm.
holes. But I read her unpublished autobiography. I read so many memoirs and nonfiction books just about all of the people involved in that time. So I did extensive research from everything from letters to newspapers to the memoirs.
Hmm. And then let's talk about pen to paper. Like, how did you keep track with everything that was going on during that time to, make sure that you were accurate in the time frame? There was a lot going on. She stood up for women's rights. She also was heavily involved in, civil rights actions. And so it was a lot going on in that time period that she was fighting for and that she was up against.
Right. And so, good books aren't written, they're rewritten. So in the first draft, everything goes in.
Yeah.
And then, my editor goes, look, you are not Barack Obama. You cannot write a 700-page book. So we got to cut. And the cutting begins. And
Yes.
so that's what I did. I put everything in and then I kind of scaled down. But she just did so much that, there was a lot that had to be cut out. This woman was phenomenal and the world really does need to know about her.
Yeah, she was really fun. I think people can go on further rabbit holes to learn more, about
Yeah.
her. And so let's start with, I mean, I loved her ambition. Her
Yeah.
ambition was everything. And, even we'll talk about the man in a minute, but the
Yeah.
ambition was everything. And then not only did she, have it for herself, she had it for others and she used her status to help other women.
Right, right. And that's one of the things that I love because she was at a point in her life where she could have sat back and just taken her money.
Yes.
But she realized she had a voice and she chose to use it.
Yeah, let's talk about expound on that a little bit because she was, in films. She wanted people to be treated with dignity that were on set as well as
Right.
herself. She wanted to get, the right pay. I mean, she did a lot.
Right. And, she was one of the highest paid entertainers of her time. So she really could have just sat back on her laurels. But she knew that she could had a voice. And again, keep in mind, she's 22, 23 at the time.
Young,
So
yes,
when she stood up for those women in Hollywood and got blackballed because of it, she's
yes.
23. But she knew she was the only one that could do it
Hmm.
because she couldn't be replaced. Everybody goes, well, why didn't they just replace her? But she did. She had talent that couldn't be replaced. And she
Yes,
knew that, so she used it.
yeah, she did get blackballed for that. And I'm gonna do a quick shift though. I love one thing I loved about this book the most was the Black women friendships, the sisterhood.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it back then and it's carried forward to today. Those are the things that give us strength. And I love the relationship that you put on paper with her and Nina Simone. Was that was a true relationship? And it was,
It
talk a little bit
was.
about,
Now,
yeah.
so it was her relationship with Nina Simone.
And
I
Billie
addressed
Holiday,
it,
Billie
and Billie
Holiday.
Holiday. Yeah.
Yes.
The Nina Simone, I addressed it in the beginning that I kind of altered her time because Nina
Yeah.
was a big mentor. Hazel was a big mentor to Nina, but it was really after the time frame of my book. But I
Hmm.
wanted to show that. So I took a little creative liberties there. But that relationship with Billie Holiday, well, from the
That's the one
start
I'm
was,
speaking of. Yes,
yeah,
that relationship
yes,
was everything, and people tried to get her away from her during the, because Billy had her struggles, even Hazel's mom. But Hazel would not let that friendship go, which was so beautiful to see.
yeah. That I love telling Billie's story because we know the tragic Billie Holiday. We
Correct.
know the drugs and all, just the sad. I love showing the sister friend Billie Holiday, the one that was like, girl, leave that man alone, and while
Yes.
she got three trifling men in the closet. But that's who I mean, it was so great to be able to show that side of Billie and that friendship.
I think that's one of the things that surprised me the most in the story, because like you said, we always hear, the struggles that she had, but seeing that, she had a real friendship and that she was a real friend,
Yeah.
and that was just a beautiful thing to see. Um, Another thing that you pointed out that I love too is that Hazel was a mentor to Nina Simone. And so with all the success of Nina Simone and her music, you never hear about Hazel.
Yeah. And that is because they effectively erased Hazel. I call her an erased icon. When they set out to destroy her and erase her for speaking up for civil rights, they did just that.
Yeah.
She was deemed a communist, and Congress basically they deemed her a communist and erased her. So much so that her show, the Hazel Scott show, which was the first black TV show, a black woman to have a TV show, black person really, you can't find any footage of it. They effectively erased her and got all of her gigs dried up, and that's why she moved to Paris.
Mm. And then let's talk about the refuge of when she goes to Paris, because, everyone's in Paris. They
Yes.
leave the US and go to Paris.
And that's what a lot of them were doing at that time. From James Baldwin,
Yeah.
Billie Holiday, and so they found a sanctity in Paris that they didn't have here in America.
It's just so crazy how everything is repeating itself, because you have so many people
Exactly.
leaving the US, yet again.
Yes. Exactly.
Um, let's talk a little bit about the relationship between Hazel and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And
Yeah.
I know so many of us, my other book influencers, are reading this book at the same time, and we were really going in on him. He just was not comfortable with her success.
And that's what attracted him to him. That's what's so crazy. But
Yes.
what happens though when you have two stars shining brightly, one of them is bound to dim, and so often it's the woman who dims her light so her man can
Yes.
shine brighter. And their egos were just too big to be together. Adam, he was attracted to all of that, but the minute he saw that she's getting more shine than him, he wanted her to take a back seat, and she
Hmm.
did. And then he still did what he did. He still stepped out.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and then she came back to the forefront, as she should, because she was not going.
Yep.
I love that she was like, she took the step back, you know, to see how things would work, and then she stepped back into who she really was. It wasn't gonna, some women just sit in the back forever and knowing that their
Yeah.
shine is diminishing. But she stepped forward, and I love that.
And that's when everything shifted. When she chose
Yes.
herself, everything
Yes.
started to shift for her. Yeah.
I almost lost it when she came to visit him here in DC, and his secretary was living with him. She thought she was getting ready to leave out, and she went
And she
back
go to her
to her
bedroom.
room. I said, "Wait a minute."
You and me both, because as I'm sitting there reading the letters, because all of this stuff is in her letters. She's writing about it. She wrote to a friend and said, "Can you believe I went to his house and Hattie, that was the sister's name, was living there." So yeah, my mouth was on the floor in that research library.
And so she had letters. Okay, yes, that's nice. At least they didn't erase that.
Right, right.
We had that to go to. But yeah,
Hmm.
he was a mess.
He was, and they gave him so many passes. So think about it. He's the pastor of
Yes,
Abyssinia, but everybody mad at her,
yes.
because they're messing around. And so they're giving him a pass. But
We see
that's,
that today.
right. I was just about to say that. We still see that today. The women get the hard time, and the men get the pat on the back.
Yes. And so yeah, he was a pastor. I mean, he was in Congress.
Yes. He
Yes.
was the second black congressman, and he was just so powerful. Now, he did a lot for civil rights, and that's
Yes.
why they gave him so many passes. because he was a lousy husband, but he was a great congressman. And
Mm-hmm.
so for that, people were like, "Oh well,
Yeah. And let's talk. I can't recall it right now, but you're just you brought in an ally. And so
Josephine, you're talking about
yes.
for hey, yeah. So Josephine Schuyler was a real person,
Mm-hmm.
and her and Hazel were friends, and her daughter was a famous pianist. And so what I wanted to show was Josephine is one of those people who did give up everything for her husband and her family, and just kind of withered away. And
Yeah.
so I wanted Hazel to be able to see that, to show what happens when you just allow your light to dim and stay dim.
Mm-hmm. And Josephine got a hard time for being in Harlem,
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
black spaces. I mean, I think that's something, evolution over time, that still, is a thing, if
Right.
whether or not the allies can be trusted.
Yep.
Um, but so I like how you weaved her story in to show Hazel, not dimming your light, so to speak. And
Right.
she was,
And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, she was. So she was a big ally. They called her Miss Anne of Harlem. I mean, and she just was never accepted. Now, mind you, she married a black man, hoping
Yes.
that together they could change the world. She didn't know her black man was going to turn out to be MAGA.
And that he was.
Yes, yes. She like, out of all the black men in Harlem, this is what
She
I
picked
get.
that one. Yes, she should. She did. And so I'm interested to know, like, with the story and talking about, like you said, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was very powerful. Have you received any type of pushback or anything on his legacy, anything of that nature?
No, I actually was hesitant, because
Mm-hmm.
there's this thing in the black community. We don't really like to talk bad about our icons and our
Yes.
leaders. But what I wanted to show they're flawed.
Mm-hmm.
You can be good and bad, and Adam was both.
Yeah.
And so I did wrestle with it in the beginning. There has not been any blowback. In fact, I opened at Abyssinia, and I did my book launch there. And when they first told me, I was like, "Ooh, had they read the book?" but but they know him. It's
Yeah.
public knowledge. And so I think people appreciate seeing the human angle, because that lets the kids coming up today know I can have flaws and still be contribute to the art this country. Now, hopefully, they learn from those mistakes and flaws,
Yes.
but it shows
Yes.
them they don't have to be perfect.
It's the same question I asked my soror, your good friend
Yes.
Victoria. I asked her the same thing when she was showing, the boy,
Uh
and
huh.
how he was with Jesse Fawcett. The same type of thing, showing the flaws in these people that we have elevated in society. Rightfully so.
Hmm.
They've done marvelous things, but they also are human.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, so talk about as you are writing historical fiction, you started Queen of Sugar Hill is an
Yes.
amazing book. If y'all in the
Thank
audience
you.
haven't read that book, read that book. And Hazel Scott, and I just love the conversation that's going on when people are talking about this book, especially on social media. I've seen where they're talking about Hazel Scott and then, hey, have you read Queen of Sugar Hill? And so the tie-in for that. So my question is, what is next?
Yeah, so I am not actually doing a person next. I'm doing an issue, which is prohibition. So in my research, I was fascinated to discover that Black women carry the moonshine and bootleg industry. Their backs were it was built on their backs. I didn't know that, and so it was fascinating to look at all that was built from that. And so my story is dealing with that time, prohibition and Black women at that time.
And so because I've talked to several other historical fiction Black women writers, and I'm thinking, why do you feel that in this time, especially in this time when, especially book banning, trying
Yeah.
to erase our stories, it's so important to unearth these women and shine a light on them.
Yeah, because we grew up. I consider myself intelligent. I'm college educated. Why don't I know this stuff? Why
Hmm.
wasn't I taught this stuff? Well, they're not going to teach it in schools,
No.
and so it is our duty to just make sure that these stories are told, that these erased icons are no more. And so I love what Victoria always says, that we're resurrecting these people. And
Yes.
I think we've found a way to educate the masses while entertaining them as well. That's what I love about historical fiction. And I love reading all these stories and learning. My son had never heard of Hattie McDaniel. And
Mm.
when I told him all that she had done, and especially for the fact that we could live wherever we want to live because of her efforts, he was like, "Why don't we know that?" And I'm
Mm.
thinking, well, the school's not going to teach you. And then I'm like, well, then it's my responsibility to teach you. So
Yeah.
that's why I love historical fiction.
Yeah, it's my favorite. I just think you can discover so much. And if you truly are into historical fiction and on the page the writer is doing what they are supposed to do, it's going to lead you somewhere else. You're going to want, and I love that about your writing, Victoria's writing. It's going to make you leave the page and
Yep,
go dig and find out more information. And there's,
yep,
when you drop names in and relationships, it's like, wow, you want to go now search for those relationships and find out
yes.
more about people, that you discover within the historical fiction novel.
And you see that a lot in this book, and people are like, all of these names of James Baldwin, Miles Davis, but those are icons to us, but they were friends and family to Hazel. And so
Yes.
that's what I loved. I love just getting into their worlds. This is every day she's hanging out with Duke Ellington. These are day-to-day friends.
Yeah, and I think that's the side of it, celebrities and friendships. But when you go back to an era that we weren't in, like we look at celebrities today and we can see their relationships, but an era that we were not a part of, and
Right.
then people that we know, and then you can go back and see the connection. Because I forgot the Miles Davis connection. I was like, wow.
Yeah, yep, yeah.
So
And then
yeah.
we can't forget that Quincy connection.
Wait a minute. Now I almost forgot. I had to flip my paper over. I almost forgot when I listened to the audiobook, and there were several times when I'm listening, I just kind of let out a little yelp or a little scream. Like,
Hmm.
because when you finally introduced him, I was like, because they met in Seattle, correct?
Yes, yep.
And so I kind of I was like, oh my God, this is going to be Quincy Jones that they're talking about. And it was. And I kind of let
Uh-huh.
out my yelp. And so talk about that, because how amazing.
So I am researching now. Her autobiography, she wanted to take the high road. She didn't want to give us the tea. So she only used initials. So she talked about her time in Paris and how she loved this younger man named Q. That's all she would say. So I now got to go down a rabbit hole and figure out who this Q is.
Uh-huh.
So I go and I'm researching, and then I come across an article with him. I read his memoir, and I'm like, it's Quincy Jones. So I start putting everything together, digging, and I let out a yelp when I discovered it was Quincy Jones.
Alicia in the comments says she dropped the book when QJ came across the page. I'm
Yep,
telling
yep,
you, that was something, and that's something that I had no idea,
yep,
because I didn't know
yep.
anything about Hazel. You hear about his other
Right.
relationships, I didn't know that.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, and he was a youngin. I mean, she was young too,
I
but he was
know.
young.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yes. Um, what has stayed with you the most after researching and writing this story? What about Hazel's story has stayed with you the most?
You know that she used her voice when it was easier to sit down and be quiet. She stood up and spoke out, and that has stayed with me. And that is, I hope, a takeaway for so many people, because it is easy to just sit back and be quiet. But I love that she used her voice, and I hope that others can be inspired from that.
Yeah, I think the whole time, and I've said this already, the whole time reading the book, I'm just like, wow, this is so relevant to today. Because
Yeah.
yet again, you have Black women speaking
Yep.
up on the cause, not only for ourselves and our race, but for others as well,
Right.
right? And
Hmm.
so that's one thing. Any part of the book or any character that you found that was difficult to write?
So it was difficult to write about Hazel's breakdown,
Mm,
because the weight of everything. But what I loved is her when she saw her son watching her. That was her motivation to just say, nope, I can't succumb to the weight of the world. And I
yeah.
love that. But it was a difficult scene to just watch everything, because she worked so hard, and to watch her just kind of say, I'm tired. But she
Yes.
found the strength to get up.
And then, if I recall, he was putting her away.
Yes. Yeah. He actually had signed and was putting her away. He said he was doing it for her benefit, so the media didn't get a hold of it. You know, but luckily she had sisters in her corner that was like, no,
Right. This is not
yeah,
happening. This is not
yeah,
happening.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. I totally I appreciate you taking the time, the years to write this story. It is an important one. And as Victoria says, unearthing these hidden people
Right,
that
correct.
deserve, yes, that deserve, I'm going to now read her memoir because I haven't read that. And so
Yes.
I want to read that. I saw someone else post about it. Um, Let me ask you one more question before I let you go because I know you're in transit. Um, Tell us, what are you reading? Are you reading anything that,
I am an avid reader. I
I
love
know you are.
reading.
That's why I asked this question.
So I am really right now in the middle of Ken.
Oh
I'm
my
loving it
goodness.
with Tara. You know it's going to be great. I'm in the middle of that. I just finished Keeper of Lost Children, and I'm in a car. My husband is driving me, and he wants to listen to that book over and over because of the military angle.
Yes.
That Sadiqa nailed it. So yes, those are the two. I just finished Keeper of Lost Children and listening to Ken.
Yes, let me tell you, Ken is so good. And I had to recover from that yet another,
Yes.
but Keeper of Lost Children, definitely, definitely a good book. Your audiobook narration was very good.
Oh yes, she did a great job. She
It
really did.
was very good. Yeah, and I'm very particular about audiobooks, and so I need my attention to and the language, the tone of the voice, and it was just a very good audiobook. So anyone in the audience, if you're audiobook, definitely check out the audiobook for sure. We talk about Victoria so much, we going to call you Victoria. ReShonda, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And I'm so happy that we chose your book for
I
Women's History
am
Month.
too.
It was
Thank
a
you
perfect
so
read.
much. It was,
Yes.
and I'm sorry about my background. As you know,
No
I'm
worry. And
out.
listen, I appreciate you saying yes. And I'm just so glad that our community got to discover with Love from Harlem and
Yes.
learn about Hazel Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye
Have a good
bye.
day. Bye bye.
All right.